All right, so this is class number 10 on Masechet Sanhedrin. We're Daf Sadi Bet, Amud Aleph. We are going to be going through a series of statements by Rabbi Elazar. These are going to be a series of statements related to the following idea. So Shlomo HaMelech writes a book. The name of the book is Mishle. Mishle is a book that is based upon the idea that in life you can't act stupidly and expect that everything will be okay. So, what that means is, and there's like a certain type of attitude. Unfortunately, even some religious people have this attitude. In fact, I would say it's more of a religious attitude. God is going to take care of me, and because God is going to take care of me, I don't need to be careful in the way I conduct my life. Everything will turn out all right. That's a mistake. It's not a mistake that God will take care of you. He will take care of you. But you need to take care of yourself, right? And if a person doesn't take care of themselves, then, it's like that joke. You probably all heard this joke where it's the person is being warned that there is a severe hurricane coming, and he is being told, please leave your house right now. They send a rescue team to the house to extract him before the hurricane comes. They're warning people, and they have transportation. He says, no, God will take care of me. Everything will be just fine. And he stays in the house, and then the hurricane comes, and there's severe flooding, and a boat, a rubber dinghy goes by the house, and they call him and they say, jump into the dinghy, we'll save you. He says, no, God will take care of me. Everything will be all right. And then the flooding gets worse and worse, and he's finally on top of the roof of his house, and they send the helicopter, and the ladder comes down, and they say, grab the ladder, we'll save you. He says, no, God will take care of me. Everything will be all right. And within 5 minutes, the water continues to rise. He drowns. He's in heaven, and he tells God, why didn't you save me? And he says, what do you mean? I sent you a person to the house before the hurricane. I sent you a person to the house when the flooding was getting really severe. I sent you another person in a helicopter. What did you want me to do? Right? Like what's God saving us? God saves us by sending us malachim, people, angels, human beings to help us. So in life, God gives us opportunities to help ourselves. And if we don't act intelligently, if we mess things up, there'll be consequences, right? You gotta be smart. Even in Israel, look, by the way, even in Israel, meaning Israel made a terrible mistake, and they'll find out one day what happened on October 7th. Probably within a year, they would start an investigation when the war is over. They don't want to do the investigation now because it's obviously wrong to do an investigation like this during the war. But after the war, they're going to find out what happened. Now, the bottom line is, October 7th means a lot of things, but it also means you have to be smart. And if you don't take the right precautions, there's nothing, there's no helping you. So in Hebrew, a person who acts in his life, a person who acts in a way of wisdom, that's called da'at. Da'at is the final level of intelligence, right? I'll give you an example. There's people who are amazing at mathematics. They could do these calculations. They have chokhmah. Unbelievable. Like you give them a number and they'll do the calculation. But they don't have da'at. They're not intelligent in the way they're miserable people. They don't have good relationships with other individuals. They have problems, personal issues. So you can be a Nobel Prize winner. You can discover something nobody else discovered, but you don't have da'at. So you can have chokhmah. Chokhmah means you're very good at solving problems. You're brilliant. You're an amazing chess player. So you can be an amazing chess player and still be a miserable person, because you're conducting your life stupidly. On the other hand, you can have a person who maybe doesn't have the highest IQ, maybe, but he's very kind and gentle, and people love him, and he loves people, and he gets along with everyone, and he has a nice business, right? So you see, da'at is not book smart. You have a lot of professors who are book smart, but they're stupid in their lives. By the way, that's why you have a lot of these people who are professors and intellectuals, and they're pro-Hamas. I mean, it shows that they don't have da'at. Right? So they're very book smart. We're not going to take that away from them, but they don't have da'at. So we pray to God that He give us chokhmah. Yes, we want to be book smart. Bina, we want to know how to apply knowledge, but we want da'at. So da'at is the highest level. And if a person doesn't have da'at, Rabbi Elazar says, asur lerachem alav. It's even forbidden to feel bad for him. in the sense, not that we're mean people, in the sense that the guy's screwing up his own life. What can you do? Like, you're gonna feel sadness. I do feel sadness, but he's screwing up his life. So a person has a gambling problem. There are people who have gambling problems, and they're addicted to gambling, and they can't help themselves, and they ruin their lives. So you feel bad for the person, but on the other hand, you understand the person ruined his life through this addiction, right? So let's do Amar Bilazar. So we're dealing with this subject.
But that is God given to you, or you can earn it?
You have to earn it. You get it through experiences in life. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a person was raised with a very good mommy and daddy, but he didn't have kibud ava'em. He didn't respect his parents. So the da'at that his parents have is not going to go to him because he's arrogant. He's disrespectful to them. On the other hand, if a person has kibud ava'em and his parents are good, then he's going to get their da'at. The da'at is going to go from the mother and father to the child because the child is acting with humility, and therefore he will get some of that da'at. So there's different things in our lives that can give us da'at, right? But it comes from Hashem. That's why we pray to Hashem.
You don't born with it.
No. Nobody's born. No, you're not born with da'at. Da'at is something you acquire.
So you're born with bina? Which one?
You're born with the ability to get chokhmah. You have chokhmah.
Right. Born with the chokhmah.
Right, you have the chokhmah. You can understand. Some kids are very, very brilliant children, or at a young age, you see they know how to play the piano, whatever. That's from God, by the way. That's from God. But da'ah is something you need through experience. Only experience gives you da'at. So young children don't have a lot of da'at unless they respect their parents, and then they get the da'at from their parents at a young age. You understand? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. By the way, that's what the pasuk says. Kabel et avicha v'et imecha. The pasuk says, respect your parents. And then it says, Le'man yarichun yamecha ulman yitav lach. If you have respect for your parents, you'll have a long life, but also you'll have a good life. What's the connection? Why would you have a good life? Because you'll have da'at at a young age. Because instead of, people today, especially children, the new generation, they have a certain contempt for the older generation. They think they know it all, right? So when you respect your parents, you're going to absorb their wisdom. Right? So that's why it's going to give you a good life. Let's read what Rabbi Elazar says. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Kol Adam she'en bo... No. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Kol anoten pito lemi she'en bo de'ah yisurim ba'in alav. I'm going to explain the peshat, and then I'm going to explain what it really means. If a person gives his bread to somebody who doesn't have this wisdom, Yisurim bayan alav, you're going to end up getting Yisurim. You're going to end up suffering. Because what did you do? There was this person, he doesn't have da'ah, and you gave him your bread. I'll explain that in a moment. Okay. But how do we know this? Shene'emar lachmecha yasimu mazor tahtecha en tevuna bo. The pasuk says in Obadiah that those people, lachmecha, those people who eat bread with you, they're going to put mazor tahtecha, they're going to put a sickness under you. And why is that? Why are these people going to do that? En tevuna bo, because these people don't have that particular wisdom. So if you break bread with people who don't have wisdom, they're going to end up making you sick with the sicknesses that they have. Let me explain what this means. First of all, number one, you all know that it is a mitzvah to give tzedakah. And you all know, or you should know, that if a poor person comes to me and says, listen, I need $100, I want to buy myself a TV. Like, okay, maybe I can give him, I can decide I don't want to give you the money. I need $100, I want to buy myself a new suit. Okay, whatever. But if he says, I need $100, I want food, I'm going to buy him food. I'll buy him food. I can't say whatever. If a person is hungry and he needs food and he comes to me and I have money to buy him food, I'll buy him food. One of the highlights of my trip in Israel, there was I saw a poor person from Debrak. He was asking for money. I asked him, what do you need? He said, truth is, I need to go to the supermarket. I said, why? He told me, I live in Bnei Brak, I have a wife, children, I want to buy. I said, you want to buy food? He says, yes. I said, okay, I'll take you to the supermarket. So I bought him all the food he wanted, because I knew that the highest level of tzedakah is food. You can never go wrong with food. I entered the supermarket, he kept going, can I take something else? I said, take whatever you want to take. He said, but my kids like this junk food. He said, okay. I said, please take it. I could tell from his humble attitude that he was almost like embarrassed. He didn't want to be pushy. He really needed the food. So when a person wants food and you can help them and give them the money for the food, that's a highest tzedakah. So how can he say here, Rabbi Elazar says that if you give bread to a person who doesn't have de'ah, you're going to be punished. You're going to get sick from it. You understand my question? How can you say that? What, I have to do an IQ test now? Somebody comes to tzedakah, he wants tzedakah. Okay, tell me Mishnah Be'al Peh. Tell me Masechet Berachot. What's the first Mishnah Masechet Berachot? I just want food. Okay, forget it. You're a booty. You're good for nothing. Go away. Is that what we're going to do? No, we're not going to do that. So how can it be Al-Azhar say, Kol Adam she'en bo de'ah, he says, if a person gives his bread to somebody who doesn't have da'at, who's not wise, the person, let's say a person ruined his life, he was a bum, he was a gambler, and now he comes to me and he's hungry and he needs to eat. I'm not going to give him food. Are you good for nothing? So let me explain to you. This is talking about breaking bread with someone. Breaking bread means the people you sit down and eat with. We're not talking about tzedakah. Tzedakah, of course, we give tzedakah to everybody, even to people who ended up hurting themselves with their bad decisions. Of course, we give them tzedakah. A person is a drug addict, chazit, shelon neda, we should not know anything like that. And now he comes to me and he doesn't have food, and I'm going to tell him, no, I'm not giving you food. You're good for nothing. I'll buy him food. I won't give him the money. If I give him the money, I know he's going to use the money to buy drugs. But I'll give him food. And I'm not going to tell him, oh, you have no de'ah. But who do I sit down to eat with? Who are my friends? The people you break bread with are the people that you're close with. The Chachamim say, originally, according to law, it was permissible for me to enter the house of a goy and to break bread with the goy and to eat the bread that the goy cooked, on condition, of course, that the bread is kosher, which is bread is usually kosher. So originally, if I wanted to enter the house of a goy, and he says, B'chavod, I just want you to know, Rabbi, the bread is 100% kosher. I baked the bread, but I'm telling you, everything was done with kosher utensils, no problem with anything. According to halacha, it used to be that I was able to eat the bread of a goy. Then the Chachamim said, haram. It was gezerat derabanan. They made a special decree because they said, legima mekarevet et haberiot. When you break bread with somebody, you become close with that individual. Now the Gemara says, what? That person has the daughter in the house. You're becoming friendly with him. You may end up marrying the daughter. Because when you share bread with somebody, it creates a certain bond between the individuals. And now the daughter is there in Bar Minan, the guy's going to be friendly with the goy, and now he's going to end up marrying the daughter. So mishum hatnut, because of the problem that somebody might end up marrying a goya, we said you can't even eat bread with them. Stay away from that situation where you're breaking bread with the goy, so that you don't get close to the goy, and then the consequences are whatever they are. So this is what it's talking about. It says, don't break bread with this individual, meaning choose your friends wisely. Don't become friendly with people who themselves are miserable and people who themselves have made poor choices, because you know what's going to happen? Their sickness may end up afflicting you. You may end up getting the bad influences from that individual. You see the point of Rabbi Elazar? So it's not a point saying not to give bread to a person who's hungry. Of course we give bread to anybody. But to choose who your friends are and who you break bread with, be careful. Choose your friends wisely. Understood? And that's what the Pasuk says. Again, reading the Pasuk one more time. Yes, lachmecha, those people that you break bread with, yasimu mazol tahtecha, they're going to end up making you sick, and tevunabo. And when we're talking about sick, we're not talking about a physical sickness. We're talking about the worst sickness, which is the sickness of you don't have wisdom, and you act in an unintelligent way in your life. The Torah expects us to be intelligent people. Okay, that's the first statement. Statement number 2. The en mazor ela yisurim. The word mazor means sicknesses or affliction or suffering. Shenemar vayar Ephraim et kol yov Yehuda et mazora. Okay, that was the first statement. We are now going to read the second statement. And by the way, the class is going to end. We're going to go back to Tahiyat HaMetim. We have something really crazy that we still didn't start. When I say crazy, I mean unbelievable. I mean crazy like wild. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Wild. And Tahiyat HaMetim that we still didn't get to, we'll get to it today. If a person doesn't have this de'ah, doesn't have wisdom, again, he conducts his life in an unintelligent manner, he is going to end up going into exile. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, Lachen gala ami bibeli da'at. As the pasuk says, my nation, the Jewish people, they end up going into exile. They ended up leaving Jerusalem, going to Babylonia. And you know what they lacked? They had intelligence. They were very smart, right? They lacked da'at. They didn't have this wisdom, and they didn't understand what's happening around them. And when you don't understand what's happening around you, you end up making fatal mistakes. Next. Now, how do you get da'at? How do you get da'at? Now, you asked me before, where does da'at come from? It comes from God. But what is the number one source of da'at? Meaning, where is the place that you can go to for da'at? Amazon. Google.
Experience and Torah.
Learning Torah. Experience. Who said experience and Torah? That's very good. Learning Torah, experience and Torah. So you need to always be connected with God. When a person is connected with God and he uses his brain and he thinks, God will show him the way. So you need to have that connection. And how do you establish a connection with God? By studying Torah. And the Chachamim say the best time to study Torah is at night, because in the daytime there's all these distractions. You can never really fully escape during the daytime except for Shabbat. But generally speaking, during the day, it's distractions. In the middle of the night, you wake up, you study Torah, there's no interruptions, nothing is going to bother you. At nighttime, that's the time for Torah. So the Rabbi Elazar says, Kol Bait, if there is a house, she'en divrei Torah nishmeim bo balayla, which you don't hear words of Torah in that house at night, meaning they're not connected, therefore, with God. Because if they were connected with God, there would be Torah in the house at night. Esh ochlato. Then this place will be consumed by fire. The fire here means the fire of Gehinnom, meaning a family which doesn't have Torah, bar minan, that family, chas v'shalom, God forbid, could end up being destroyed. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, kol choshech tamun lispunav. When you have darkness which hides everything, and here we're talking about the darkness that comes when there's no Torah, te'ochleu esh lo nupach. There's going to be a fire that eats up that individual, but that fire is not going to be a regular fire that you ignite. Now we ignite a fire. Let's say we strike a match, you ignite a fire. This fire is a fire that's eternal. Esh lo nupach. It wasn't ignited by man. Yera sariv be'aholos. So what is it talking about? It's talking about the fire of Gehinnom. Meaning the fire of Gehinnom is going to come upon that individual who doesn't have Torah at night, and therefore he lacks da'at. He's going to automatically bring himself into situations in life which is going to be a type of living hell, right? So living hell comes from lack of da'at. Lack of da'at comes from lack of Torah. So the best protection is study Torah at night. I tell this to everybody, even if you can't study Gemara every night, so take a book of Tehillim, read Tehillim. You don't want to read Tehillim every night, maybe it's boring, no problem. It isn't boring, but let's say you want to switch, read Perashat HaShavua. So every night read Perashat HaShavua, spend 10 minutes at night studying Perashat HaShavua, studying one of the books of the Nevi'im, right? But the point is, you have to have this continual connection with God by always reading the words of God. Clear? Any questions?
Classes, listening to classes, the same level?
Of course, yes. Listening to classes, whatever you can do. Whatever you do, it's good. You're listening to class. Now on YouTube, you have so many classes on YouTube. It's fantastic how many classes you have on YouTube, right? You have the old classes. I'm always listening to classes. I study Torah, but then sometimes I get tired, so I'll listen to a class. Maybe I'll listen to one of my father's classes I have on YouTube, or maybe I don't know, the Yosef, I don't know, the Chaliel from the old world. So you listen to classes, of course, right? שנאמר, כל חושך, I'm reading the pasuk again, כל חושך טמון לספוניו, תאכלהו אש לנו פח, ירא שריד בעולו, אין שריד אלא תמיר חכם. Now why was it that this person got that fire that attacked him? Because ירא שריד בעולו, because his tent, meaning his house, didn't have sarid. What does sarid mean? Sarid means something that's left over, something that's marginalized. But here it's talking about the Talmidei Chachamim, the people who teach us Torah, who study Torah, who themselves study Torah. So because the Torah is something that we take for granted, it's not such an important thing. Do you need to have a fire alarm in your house? 100%. You should have a fire alarm in your house, of course. Do you need to have plumbing in your house? You need to have plumbing in your house, of course. Do you need to have Torah in the house? Whatever. Okay, sure. So you see, it's a marginal thing in our minds. So the sarid is a tamir chacham, and in your mind you're marginalizing the Torah, and basically you're marginalizing the Torah. It's so that's what's happening. So there's going to be the fire of Gehinnom. So inside of the light of the Torah, you're going to be the fire of Gehinnom. Shneimar uba seridim asher Adonai koreh. The seridim are the hachamim that are marginalized, and God is always calling upon these hachamim and always looking upon the hachamim and always protecting the hachamim. So people who study Torah at night, they got the special protection that comes upon the Talmidei Hachamim. Next statement. כל שאינו מהנה תלמידי חכמים נכסיו, אינו רואה סימן ברכה לעולם. Another thing, sometimes a person says, you know what, it's hard for me to study Torah, I can't do it, so you know what I can't do it, so just give up. No! Another thing you can do, you can have a relationship with the Talmid Chacham. There's one of the Tanaim, he's in the Mishnah, in Masechet Zevachim. There's a Mishnah, Perek Aleph, Halakha Bet. It says, in the Mishnah it says Yosef ben Choni, and then it brings Shimon Lachi Azariah. So it says Yosef ben Choni. The first Chacham is Yosef, the son of Choni. So Yosef ben Choni Omer, Kol HaNishchatim L'Shem Pesach L'Shem Hatat Pesulim. Okay, whatever that means. Then the next Chacham says Shimon Achi Azariah. He has a statement. Now notice, Yosef ben Choni means Yosef, the son of Choni. What does Shimon Achi Azariah mean? Shimon, the brother of Azariah. Why are we mentioning his brother? We should be mentioning his father. We always say Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, right? We say Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma. We say Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yosef. Why here we say Shimon Achi Azariah, the brother of Azariah? Understand the question? So the Gemara says that they had a deal between them where he would work, the brother would work, and the other brother would study Torah, right? And they say that because the brother who worked would support the brother who was studying Torah, the Torah of the brother who studied was like a partnership between the two of them. So they both got rewarded for that. Meaning, even though one brother is working all the time, and the other brother is studying Torah all the time, but the partnership is 50-50. So it's called Shimon Achi Azariah. Shimon, the brother of Azariah, because it's because of Azariah that he was able to study Torah, so it becomes like his spiritual father in a sense, right? Because he helped him study. Also Harambam used to have a brother called David. Now David used to be a businessman. He used to travel to the Far East, and then he used to come back to the Mediterranean area, and he used to come back with commerce from the Far East and sell it locally. So Harambam was able to study Torah, and his brother was rich. He supported Harambam. That's a way to connect yourself. Meaning, a way to connect yourself is to help a Talmid Chacham and say, I want to help you. You're my brother. You're my son. There's many fathers who support their sons to study, right? So kol mehaneh. So he says here, getting back to Rabbi Elazar. You don't study Torah on the one hand, and on the other hand, you refuse to even support the Hachamim who study Torah. Eno ro'eh siman beracha le'olam. This person who doesn't study, he doesn't want to support the people who are studying. He doesn't have a son or a brother or somebody says, I want you to study Torah. I'm going to support you. You study, and I'll support you. Eno ro'eh siman beracha le'olam. He'll have money, but he won't enjoy his money, right? Because a lot of people have money, but they're always like wound up. They're all over the place, right? Siman beracha means, you feel content. You feel good, right? Not everybody feels good, right? Not everybody feels that feeling of satisfaction. So this person, because he doesn't have Torah in his life, he's gonna lack that. Siman beracha. Shneimar en sarid leochlo al ken lo yachil tuvo. So the pasuk says, because this person is not feeding the Talmid Chacham, he will never see the ultimate good that he could have seen. So there's different ways again to be connected. So advice number one, don't break bread with the person who is of a morally low caliber. Advice number two, study Torah yourself. Advice number three, you find that you're not being a Gadol Hador, doesn't matter. Give money to somebody who's studying Torah and say, I want to support you and I want to have a partnership. By the way, they say also Yisachar and Zevulun, the sons of Yaakov. They say that Yisachar used to study Torah. He had a tremendous mind. And Zevulun used to support Yisachar for studying Torah. The pasuk says in this week's parasha, Zevulun lechof yamim. Zevulun used to go on the boats, like the brother of Harambam, to do business. And Yisachar was studying Torah. All right? Questions? Yes, it's clear? All right. Another statement of Rabbi Elazar before we get to the thing about Tahiyat HaMetim. What time is it?
9:02.
Perfect, we're going to make it. Okay. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Kol she'eno meshayer pat al shulchano eno ro'eh siman beracha le'olam. If a person does not leave bread on his table, he'll never have siman beracha. What does that mean? You're eating a meal. When I eat, have a sandwich. I eat the sandwich. He says, no, you can't have the whole sandwich. So you leave a little bread behind. Why? Again, I'm reading it again. Kol she'eno meshayer pat al shulchano. You're eating bread. You don't need to leave some bread behind. Eno ro'eh siman beracha. You will never have that feeling of satisfaction from your money. Shene'emar en sarid leochlo al ken lo yachil tuvo. Why? What's the thing? So I'll explain this. Back then, the custom was that when you were eating, you would how today we give maaser from our money. We give 10%, whatever it is, to tzedakah. Okay, so we give 10% to tzedakah, and I explained in my class in the morning that when we give 10% to tzedakah, that it also includes supporting our children. So if we send our kids to yeshiva bill is whatever. It's a lot of money. As some of you may know, to send kids to yeshiva.
More than 10%. Yeah.
More than 10%. That's tzedakah. There's no greater tzedakah than you have a child and you said, I'm not sending him to public school, I'm going to spend whatever money on his yeshiva bills. Tremendous tzedakah. So just so you know, that's included. Now also back then, the custom was that when people would eat, they would leave a little on the side for the aniyim. You wouldn't finish everything. You would leave some on the side so the poor person can come and share with the food that you're eating, right? That's the way it was done. It was done in different ways. One of the ways was you would invite the poor person, he would be the waiter. And as a tip, you would leave him some of the food. That's one of the things. But it didn't have to be like that. Now, we also had a similar law in the field. So when it came time to harvest the field, the law was, and this is Mitzvot Aseh Deoraita, Lo techalek pe'at sadecha liksor. When you harvest the field, you would leave some on the side. and the poor people would enter the field and they would take what they want, right? That's called pe'ah. This was a similar thing where you're eating a meal, leave some for the poor, and they would know that to come in and they have some of the food for themselves. So it says, if you're such a stingy person that you could eat all the food and you're not going to leave anything behind for the hazard for the poor, haram, be'emet haram. And therefore, there's no siman beracha for this person, right? You understand the law?
What you have to do today?
Yeah, how do you relate that?
So today, make sure we support organizations that feed people.
No, but this is special about the bread.
Right, no, so today, okay, look, I'll tell you what. When I was,
I remember my grandparents, they used to leave a little bit always.
right,
In the garden.
yeah, me too, by the way, my grandparents, Aleim Shalom also, they actually used to invite the people, this is like, they used to invite the poor to come and join in the meal. But you're right, that's where the custom comes from, to leave a little on the side. But the original law, just so you know, I know, they said don't leave a little on the side and then say Birkat HaMazon. And then after Birkat HaMazon, you clear it. And that's correct. My wife also. If I'm about to say Birkat HaMazon, I go, I want to clear the table. What are you doing? I have to leave some bread behind. She's right. Yeah, she's right.
My
What?
father-in-law does that.
Also, Mikey, yeah, exactly. So let's from this come out. But I'm explaining to you the original, what's the reason. So now you know the reason. Originally, it wasn't just leaving bread behind. It was leaving it for the poor to come, and like that they would enjoy the meal. You understand? But today, because we don't have that society change, we don't feel comfortable inviting people into the house. We don't. Okay, so we put the bread on the side. That's fine. The pasuk says, "Lo yachdal evyon b'kerev haaretz." So in the days of the Mashiach, we hope everybody is rich. But let's say there's people who need help. They need. We invite them to the house. Bechavot, please sit down with us and break bread. So we'll be able to go back to the original law. By the way, sometimes breaking bread isn't even just about the bread. It could be the person needs to be comforted. Maybe he's suffering. Maybe he's going through a hard time. You invite them to the house. They feel good. You're giving them companionship. It's not always just about the bread. So even in Yemot HaMashiach, there could be a situation where a person needs a little an extra hug. So you invite them over, please, I want to be with you, and then they eat with you. But that's why we leave the bread today. Is that what you wanted to say, Joe?
Yeah, just in terms of, that's, I understood the halakha to me that you actually have to leave, like some people, let's say they have, rolls, holly rolls on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Is that you can't just leave a whole roll as one of the leftovers. You actually have to have something that was cut as on the table.
Right, because you were giving a piece of the bread to the poor. Exactly. Okay, so the Gemara is going to bring an unusual law right now, which is related to this, and it says as follows. Okay. But hold on 1 second, says the Gemara. We have a statement by the same Rabbi Elazar, who just told us that you have to leave some bread on the table. This same Rabbi Elazar has a following statement, which seems to contradict the statement we just read. Namely, the statement is as follows. The second statement says, if a person leaves bread on his table, meaning he finished eating and now he leaves bread on the table, it's as if although he's oved avodah zarah. It's as if although he's an idolater. What? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, ha'orechim legat shulchan. It's talking about the Jews in the days of the first temple when they used to do avodah zarah, and there was a god called God. Apparently, God is a god associated with the Roman god or goddess Saturn. So Saturn was originally in antiquity was also called God, and they used to leave some food on the table in honor of this god or goddess, right? Avodah zarah. V'hamalim lemani mimsach. Mani is another god. Apparently, Mani is God representing the planets or one of the other planets, and they would leave some of the drink behind in honor of this particular god, right, mythological creature, right? So the Navi is criticizing these people that when they eat their food, they leave some of the food behind for the gods. So you just said that if I leave food behind, I have to leave food behind, and it's aib if I don't leave food behind. But here it's saying to me it's aib if I leave food behind because it's for the gods. This is lakashya. Hadeleka shelema behadeh. So the answer is as follows. When do we say, and in fact, you know what, let me get Harambam. Hold on one second. Gimel, I want to read the Pesach of, oh no, it's in the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim. Siman Kof Peh. Let me get to you the Shulchan Aruch. Siman Kof Peh. Give me one moment. It's right here. Because the Maran makes Pesach just like this. Siman Kof Peh. I'm sorry to interrupt. Here it is. It should be somewhere here. Let's go. Take a 1 second. Kof Peh. No, this is actually the next one. Let's see. Go. No? Okay. Oh, okay. All right, I think I found it. Here we go. I'm going to read you what Shulchan Aruch says here. How you mix this up. So this is Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, Siman Kof Peh, and it says. He says, "En lahasir hamapa ve'alechem ala chad b'kat mazon," which is what we do today. That you leave the bread there, right? And then he says, "Kol mi she'eno mishe'er pat al shulchano eno roeh siman beracha le'olam." As our Gemara says, you have to leave bread on the table after the meal, right? And then say b'kat mazon, and then you clear it. Aval lo yavi pat shelema ve'itenena ala shulchan v'imasa ken mechzed el shem avodat kochavim. So you're not supposed to bring, and that's what the Gemara is saying here. So here's what they would do: they would eat their meal. And when they would finish eating their meals, these idolaters, they would bring a special bread on the table, a complete bread on the table. And that complete bread was in honor of whatever God, the God of God, or the God of the other name, right? And that was an idolatrous ritual. So in this way, you would be breaking bread with the gods. And supposedly the gods will do you a favor. Of course, it's all nonsense. We don't believe in Avodah Zarah. It's all shtiot, but it's all falsehood. But the point is, that's what they would do. So what we do is we break the bread and we leave not a whole bread on the table for the poor. We would break it so they get a piece. I ate a piece and the poor ate a piece. That is okay. That's when the Biur Lazar says he's supposed to leave bread on the table for the poor, a piece of bread. But when the Biur Lazar says don't leave bread on the table, he means a whole bread in honor of the God, right? So that's the resolution of those two apparently contradictory statements, but they're not really contradictory. Is that clear? Yes, sir.
So what's the difference in that and Eliyahu Hanavi on Pesach?
Eliyahu Hanavi on Pesach. You're talking about the kos shel Eliyahu Hanavi?
Yeah.
Okay, look, first of all, the kos shel Eliyahu Hanavi, let me explain to you what that's about. First, that's a great question. First of all, it's not a chova. It's not a chova, but actually, I think Rambam brings it. Come to think of it, I think Rambam does bring it in the Mishnah. I want to explain to you what the kos of Eliyahu Hanavi or what we believe. We believe that the Pesach, we say, B'Nisan nig'alu b'nei Yisrael, u'b'Nisan atidim lehigga'el, right? That's what the Gemara says, that the Geula took place in the month of Nisan. That's when we left Egypt, and the future Geula is going to take place in the month of Nisan, something with the Mashiach. Maybe Gog Magog will be in Sukkot, and then the Mashiach will come in Nisan, something like that. So we believe that Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come to announce the Mashiach. So the symbol of the fifth cup is we're leaving it in honor of Eliyahu, so that if he comes the night of Pesach, which is the night of the Geula, he can join the wine. It's a symbol. It's a symbol. But it's not for idolatry, meaning we believe that Eliyahu Hanavi is a real person that's actually going to come physically to this world and announce a Mashiach and do whatever he does. So, but that's a nice question. That's a nice. We're not praying to Eliyahu. We're not leaving the cup there. We're not. For example, had we said, Eliyahu, please do this and this for me, and here's a cup of wine, that would be Avodah Zarah. But here the idea is, in case Eliyahu Hanavi comes, we believe he's going to come, and we're leaving the wine for him, so he
Why
can.
do you open the door?
Right, that exactly. The idea is, why do we open the door?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the idea there was because on the night of Pesach, we wanted to invite guests over, right? Oh, you talking about the beginning or the end?
And
Oh, it's the Eliyahu Navi. Exactly. The idea is we believe that the Geulah is about to happen. We just brought the Korban Pesach. We just ate the Masa, the Maror, and we feel the Geulah is going to happen any moment. So we're like opening up the door. We're waiting for Eliyahu Navi, for Hashem to send Eliyahu Navi. Exactly. But Eliyahu Navi is not a God. And we don't pray to Eliyahu. We pray only to God, right? But we believe God will send Eliyahu Navi before the Mashiach.
Rabbi,
Okay.
just following up on that question, just understanding it from the way that we learned the Gemara, if we just leave, because the cup is whole.
Yeah.
We're not tampering with the cup.
Yeah.
So understanding it that, if they're saying that the difference between the two cases, one is that it's whole and one of them is we cut and we leave behind whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
The cup is whole, we're leaving.
Right. Hey, but you understand that if somebody drunk from the cup, it would be pagum, and Eliyahu Navi would not be able to make kiddush on that cup, right?
Right.
So that's a reason. But again, we're not praying to Eliyahu. We're leaving the cup so that if he comes, he can make kiddush.
Is it more the intention versus
It's the symbol.
full?
It's a symbol, but but you're right and you're wrong. Meaning, you're right, of course, that the intention in one case is to leave it for the poor, but also you have to be careful not to do something that appears to be an idolatrous ritual. So, yeah, let's say I left the whole bread,
Yeah.
but that looks like avodah zarah. So cut it into pieces or cut it into two pieces. So clearly you're distinguishing yourself from the avodah zarah. I'll give you an example. Let's say I had a pretty tree, in front of my house, and I like colorful lights. I like colorful lights. So I'll put colorful lights on the tree around Christmas. So I wouldn't do it, even though my intention is not for avodah zarah, but right. People seeing it, they understand as avodah zarah. So we have to be careful also, not just with our intentions, but the appearance of things, right? Okay, let's continue. All right. You were getting there. We're getting there. Just 1 minute. What time is that?
9:17.
Okay. I'm going to read. Alright, if a person is a liar, he's dishonest, he says one thing but he means another, he wants to trick you, and let's say dishonest in business, you act in a disreputable fashion, it's as if although you are an idolater, because it uses the same adjective for idolatry as for trickery. When Yaakov Avinu goes and he tricks his father, and he lets his father believe that he's actually Esav, and he gets a beracha. Yaakov is concerned. He tells his mom, I don't want to do this. If I do this, I'm going to appear like a trickster, to daddy. When it's talking about idolaters, it uses the same adjective. A bunch of tricksters, because idolatry is all deception. It's not real. There are no real gods and demons and all these things, and they don't enter these statues, right? So we're just going really fast because I just want to get to the thing of Tachayat Metim. I'll see how I can say this in a way. This could be on YouTube. How do I say this? If a person looks at pictures he shouldn't be looking at, he's going to end up having trouble when he's actually, with his wife. Okay, and just leave it at that, and you'll understand what that means. Because we have a limited amount of strength, and when you waste your strength on phony things, then you won't have your strength for real things. ואמר רבי אלעזר, לעולם נווה קבל וקיים. ואמר רבי זרע, אף ענן נמתננה, בית אפל, אין פותחים לו חלונות לראות נגעו. שמה מינה? Again, I'm just rushing through it because I want to get to Tachayat HaMetim. We're finishing at 9:30, so we'll just rushing through. Rabbi Elazar gives good advice in life. Heve kabel v'kayam. When you appear to people outwardly, don't be too ostentatious. You're just bringing ayin hara on yourself, meaning you don't want to be too ostentatious. Don't always be smiling and full of yourself. Keep things kind of, to yourself. You don't have to show off too much. It's not good to show off too much. Why? he says like this: if there's a dark house and it doesn't look interesting, nobody's going to open the window to see what's inside that house, right? On the other hand, people see somebody as always this, it's ostentatious. They're going to start being jealous of that person. They're going to try to hurt him. They're going to try to take advantage of him. Be a little humble. Even if you're successful, don't make too much of a big deal. See what I'm saying? Let's continue. Amar Rabbi Tavi, Amar Rabbi Yoshaya, מה דכתיב שאול ועושר רחם, ארץ לא שבעה מים, וכי מעניין שעושר רחם, אלו למלאך, מה רחם מכניס ומוציא, אף שאול מכניס ומוציא. Okay, finally we got the תחת המתים. There's a pasuk that says as follows, Sheol. Sheol literally is the Hebrew word for hell, meaning it, but it also means where a person is buried. So when a person is buried underground, the place where he's buried is called Sheol. And then you have a person, on the one hand, you have the graveyard. The person is buried underground. That's Sheol. Oserachem means, Bar Minan, a person has no children, right? A person can't have children, dies without children. Lo eres lo save'amayim. Then you have a land which needs water, but the water never comes to that land, and because the water didn't come to the land is always thirsty. So these are different types of curses, right? And he says, why is there this comparison between Sheol, the grave, and the Rachem, the womb of a woman? And the answer is as follows: Ma rechem שמכניסים בו בחשאי מוציאים בקולות, שאול שמכניסים בו בקולות, אין עוד דין שמוציאים בקלי קולות. So he says like this: when the woman gets pregnant, so the pregnancy, she's not sure, she's pregnant, she's not pregnant, she has to take a test, she's going to check. It's a hidden thing. She doesn't really know what's happening. But when she gives birth, it's screaming, she's in pain, she's holding her husband's arm, but holding things, going crazy, right? It's very painful, right? So how much more so when you put somebody in the ground to bury them, everybody's screaming and crying and in tremendous pain. Can you imagine the type of amazing jubilation is going to be when the person comes out of the ground in the days of Tehiyat HaMetim? Mikan Teshuvah la'omrim and Tehiyat HaMetim min Torah. And now we're going to say something about Tehiyat HaMetim. Tana Debe Eliyahu. The Beraita that we're reading is the Beraita that was taught in the Bet Midrash of Eliyahu Hanavi. And it's as follows: Sadiqim she'atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu le'achayotan. These people that God is going to bring back to life, they're Sadiqim. You have to be a Sadiq. If you're a Sadiq, you get Tehiyat HaMetim. Enan chozrin afaran. They're not going to go back into the ground. We said a few weeks ago that once the Jew comes back, the Sadiq comes back, he lives forever. Shne'emar, as the pasuk says, Ve'aya hanish'ar b'Sion. The person who's going to be left in Sion, Manotar b'Yerushalayim, this person who comes out of Jerusalem, from Tehiyat HaMetim, Kadosh ya'amer lo kol ha'katuv l'chaim b'Yerushalayim. It's going to be an eternal life in Jerusalem. So let me tell you about Tehiyat HaMetim. So Perashat Noach, the Zohar says, so it deals with the question of Tehiyat HaMetim, and it says, what happens to the people? So the people who live in Israel, the Tehiyat HaMetim takes place in Har HaZitim. So that's where the Tehiyat HaMetim is. You see Har HaZitim, it's on the other side of the Kotel, right? You know, when you come from the Jewish quarter, you go down the stairs, and you get to the place with the binoculars, the Kotel is this way, right across here, that's Har HaZitim. So the Zohar in Parashat Noach says, what happens to the people who live outside Israel? So it says, God is going to make these tunnels, and they're going to go through the tunnels, and the tunnel is going to reach Har HaZitim, and there's going to be Har HaZitim, the place of Tehiyat HaMetim. So Har HaZitim is the place of Tehiyat HaMetim, not just for the people who were buried in Israel, but also for the people who were buried in the Galut. So there's a Perush on the Zohar by Rabbi Moshe Zakuto. He was from the early Chachamim in the days of the Ari. And he says, he has a question. He says, why do it in such a difficult manner? Meaning, you're telling me the guy has to come back to life. He's buried in, I don't know, Brooklyn. Okay, Staten Island. He's buried in Staten Island. And you're saying this person buried by, what time is it? Okay, stop me at 929. He says the person buried in Staten Island, God's going to make a tunnel, which is an unbelievable miracle. So how many tunnels are going to be? Tens of millions, 20 million, 30 million, 50, 100 million tunnels. Who knows how many tunnels? They're going to go to Har HaZitim, and everybody's going to come back to life in Har HaZitim. So the Moshe Zakuto says, let them come back to life where they are, and let them take a plane. I mean, not a plane. Back then they didn't have planes. Today we have planes. Take a plane to Jerusalem and go. That's it. Take a boat to Jerusalem. He says, why do people have to come back to life in Har HaZitim? Let them come back to life in Brooklyn, wherever they are, and then get to Jerusalem. You understand the question? So he says, the Gemara in Masechet Bava Batra, Kof Nun Het, page 158. It says, Avira D'Yisrael Hakimah. There's a special kedusha to the era of Israel. On the other end, when you're in the Galut, like we are now, Eretz Ha'amim, outside Israel, it's Tameh. He says, these Neshamot Tehorot, they're going to be coming back in the days of Tichat HaMetim. The first breath of air is going to be a breath of air of Tum'ah in the Galut. Can't be. So he says the first breath of air is going to be in Jerusalem, the Kedusha of Yerushalayim. That's what's going to fill up their lungs. And then they start to Chayat HaMetim, and they're in Yerushalayim, and they're going to have an eternal life. So that's the Zohar and Parashat Noach with Rabbi Moshe Zakuto explaining that. That's also why the Chachamim never wanted to be buried outside Israel. They didn't want to go through the whole Mechilot. They didn't want to go through the tunnels. So that's why Yaakov Avinu tells Yosef in this week's parasha, Al natik bereni b'Mitzrayim. Now, what's one of the reasons? I'll explain it. He says, what's the big deal, Yaakov Avinu? So they're going to bury you in Mitzrayim. So they'll unbury you and bring you to Eretz Yisrael. That's what they did to Yosef. They'll do it to you. He says, no, better to be buried in Israel. Yosef didn't have a choice. I have a choice. I want to be buried in Israel. Why do you want to be buried in Israel? He says, because when you unbury a person, the body decomposes. And according to the halacha, you have to dig a tefach of like 4 inches under the body and bring the soil, so in case some of the body is now lower than where it was originally. So he says you're going to be bringing the land of Egypt, which is the poorest country in the world, into the land of Israel, which is the greatest country in the world. So now you're defiling the land of Israel for the purpose of bringing the Sadiq into Israel. They have to bring the Sadiq into Israel. We don't have a choice. But you're bringing some of the Eretz Ha'amim, the Tum'ah, from the Galut into Israel. That's why there's a Yerushalmi in Masechet Kil'ayim that says that these people who say, bury me in the Galut, and then I'll come back to Israel later on. He says, no. Best zechut is to be buried in Israel if you can. Not everybody can do it, of course. But if you can be buried in Israel, that's a bigger zechut. Now to the point that I wanted to get to today. Let me tell you what this means. There are going to be these years that God renews the world. I'll explain that in a moment. God will be alone. Meaning the world will cease to exist. Sadiqim ma'im mosim. What's going to happen to these Sadiqim? Now you said that the Sadiqim, once they come back to life, they're never going to die. But the thing is, the world one day will be renewed. And when the world is renewed, there's going to be no more world. So if there's no more world, how can you say the Sadiqim live forever? You understand the question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where are they living? Time?
28.
I believe this is talking about the fact, and even the scientists acknowledge now, that the sun is not forever. They say the sun will, I think they say, will burn out after 2-3 billion years, whatever it is. I'm not sure what their estimate is. But the point is, the sun is not eternal. Eventually the sun will turn into a giant star, red, and it'll just eviscerate the inner planets, including the earth. And that's what the Gemara is saying. God is going to recreate the world, because if the sun is going to get destroyed, and the world is going to get destroyed, then how can the Tzaddikim live forever? So first of all, God is going to recreate the world. Atid lehadesh et olamo. So if we're Jews, we're not afraid of the sun getting destroyed. God will rebuild the sun, he'll rebuild the earth. But what's going to happen to the Tzaddikim? So that we're going to study next week. What happens to the Tzaddikim when the world is destroyed and God is rebuilding the world, a new world. Belina, the next week we'll study about that. Okay? Gentlemen, any questions? Yes? Let's say Kaddish, but before we say Kaddish, I want to take a picture just because I enjoy the